When you ask me how it's changed for the better. In the creativity and the outlet is there, and you can throw it up on YouTube and on your social media, and maybe once in a while you'll get somebody that goes viral and it catches on. But the idea of a band trying to get a record deal and have that label send them out on the road and tour and maybe open up for a big band and then 2 years later be headlining themselves, I think that's harder than ever.
I think those days are over.
It still hits, I don't miss it. It's go, 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 like a go-go flow. And I'm almost done, and I told you so. When I throw these flows, like it's Rochambeau. And I ain't too close, it's Joe Smo goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, and a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bad, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On The Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by Wilkes Consulting, a Ramsey-preferred coaching firm. Are you drowning in debt? Is the weight of financial stress holding you back from living the life you were meant to live? Then it's time to break free and regain control of your financial future. Wilkes Consulting specializes in financial and debt consulting. Their team of 4 highly trained Ramsey Solutions advisors are ready to help you take charge of your money. Whether you're looking to get out of debt, pay off student loans, or simply need assistance on how to prepare to buy a home, Wilkes Consulting can help you fine-tune your budget and provide the resources and guidance you need to meet your goals. Don't let debt or the fear of finances control your life any longer. Head over to wilkesbarre.com and book a hassle-free, no-obligation call. Your first step towards financial freedom. Again, that's wilkesbarre.com, wilkescopa.com. Wilkes Consulting, making financial independence a reality.
This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an On The Stacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game.
What's up, podcast? It's Bill Corcoran Jr., host of the On The Stacks podcast, brought to you by Sweat Tent. Alan K. Stout, welcome back to the On The Stacks podcast.
Thanks, Bill. Great to be here again.
It's been a while.
I think we were just talking about it before we got rolling here. About 3 years, almost exactly, right?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, so much has changed.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot has changed. I ended up being in a documentary film after we talked about it on that episode. By the way, if anyone does want to go back, it's episode 68. Alan was a previous guest on the podcast back at our old location.
On the Stacks.
That's right. Yeah. You're an OG. You actually were on the Stacks.
I was.
Yeah. Some people nowadays may not even know what that even is, or a lot of people don't. They don't even know it exists.
They don't know why the podcast is called On the Stacks.
Yeah, right. Everyone's like, "What the heck does that mean?" Then I have to explain it, right? But yeah, you're an OG on the Stacks, and it's nice to have you back. I mean, we've crossed paths, a bunch of ways, and we'll kind of probably touch on some of that in a little bit. But man, I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you. I know when I was here 3 years ago, we were 1 year away from the premiere of the Agnes Flood documentary. And so I know we spent some time talking about that. And so that's hard to believe. It's 3 years ago, and that, the movie got done, and that we were able to do everything we hoped to do with it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was a monster project.
Never did I think in that episode that I would have ended up being in the film.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Like, people probably thought that was like planned, and it wasn't, right?
Not at all.
Like, not whatsoever. Like, I don't even really remember the timeline afterwards of that happening. But like, I just remember, obviously we did the episode, and then I don't even know how long after, but it was just like one day you're like, "Hey, Bill, you got a few minutes to chat?" I'm like, "I'm working on, working on something with the film. I want to ask you a question." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And then you're like, "Hey, we're looking for somebody for the film, blah, blah, blah." And fast forward, and then I ended up being in the film.
It was probably a good 8 months later.
Had to.
Because it was warm out when we
It was.
did the interview. We did it on Public Square.
On Public Square. Mm-hmm.
And so what happened for those watching and listening is I came on the podcast in 2021 to talk about a documentary about the Agnes Flood that we were working on that we hoped to premiere exactly a year later. And everything started falling into place really nicely. And, we start writing the film, producing the film, directing the film with the team of guys that were working on it. That was Bob Savakinas, Tim Novotny, and Tony Brooks. And I think it was Bob, one of the directors, who said, we really should get somebody in the movie that, from the perspective that didn't live through it, but that a millennial that grew up hearing about it, and what does it mean to them, and what do they think of when they see these pictures or these videos? And I said, I just had a really good interview 6 months or so ago with Bill Corcoran, and he seemed very interested in Agnes. So I think we should ask him. And that's what we did, and you were great in the movie.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
Guys, I'll be signing autographs. If you want, leave a comment. We'll line up at the door, sign on some
It
autographs.
wasn't planned at all.
Oh yeah. Never did I think.
And then you came with your family to the Kirby, to the premiere.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a chance to ask you, but I remember when I did that podcast, I said, I want you to see the movie, because a big part of it was education. I mean, we wound up taking it out to wilkes-barre area, to Holy Redeemer, to Hanover area, to Wyoming Valley West, to St. Nick's, to Good Shepherd Academy, pretty much all the schools that were in the floodplain. And we just didn't drop a DVD off and ask the social studies teacher to show it in class. We asked if they would actually have an assembly in the auditorium and have all the kids come in and watch it on the big screen, and they all did. And so it was another one of the goals that we hoped to do. We wanted young people to see it just as much as the people that lived through it. So how did you feel?
Yeah, it's funny. I do remember in that episode very distinctly you saying, "And I want you to see it, Bill." Yeah. Like, I could hear it.
Yeah.
And like anytime I even think about the film, by the way, and I'll get to the question in a second here, but every time I even think about the film, I could just distinctly hear your voice from that episode and you saying, "And I want you to see it."
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did. Number one, I mean, I'm glad you guys asked me to be part of the film, which is even cooler. Not only did I get to experience it, but I was also part of, the filming of it, which was, very unique. And, just to give my perspective on it. And like you said, from somebody who hasn't lived through it, but, I'll say generations, family members of mine before me did live through it. Right. So, I had like little memories. Right. But, it was very impactful, the film. It really was. Like, it was one of those things. First of all, I love documentaries just in general, so I'm always like big on just like learning stuff like this. But obviously, because it's here and in our hometown, I grew up here as well, born and raised here in the area. So to be able to actually see some of that, like that footage, and like actually hear the story like from beginning to end, it was incredible. And no, obviously, and to be able to be part of it was even cooler, right? But I just think, nowadays with technology and everything else, and we live in such a fast-paced world, a lot of times things like this and parts of history kind of just, I don't want to say maybe get forgotten about or overlooked or whatever it is, right? And I'm sure you could attest to this too, right? So it was really great to be able to see it
and to see, number one, to see the whole project come to life, because I know how hard you and the team worked on that. So congratulations, by the way, even though it was back then. But it was really cool to see. I mean, just to experience it, see it at the Kirby Center, and to know that all that used to be underwater, and then we watched it there. Like, it's just,
theater, yeah.
It's like I have the chills just thinking about it. Right?
There was a scene in the movie where they show the Kirby underwater, and you're sitting in the Kirby watching the movie. And for people younger, particularly, I would think that would have been an oh wow moment.
It was definitely an oh wow moment. Yeah. Like, I remember even the small part in the film that I have when I'm standing there on Public Square, and I'm saying, like, at one point this was all underwater. Like, everything from above me was all underwater.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's really hard to, like, kind of imagine that.
I think that when we were working on the film, that was something we wanted. We were hoping that would connect with younger people, and the other part of it, of course, was a tribute to our parents and our grandparents who did all that hard work.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other things. I think recognizing all the people that came before you and did all the work that they did to help, all the volunteers. And just not like, I mean, everybody alike, right? That helped and pitched in and did what they did during that time. It's incredible.
It was a bad scene, and it took a lot of work and a lot of perseverance and a lot of fortitude, and they got it done. And we hoped that the film would sort of be uplifting to the people that lived through it. It was sort of a nod to them. I remember somebody said to me afterwards, we all went over to Rodano's after the premiere, and it was she worked for Diamond City Partnership, Susan McNaught, and she said to me, you validated those people with that movie. You validated them. Like, you gave them the respect that they deserved, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. And so if people were getting that out of it, that was a nice feeling. Obviously.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want to use the word closure almost, but the word closure just kind of came to my mind when you said, for all those people that came before us, right, to validate all that. But it's almost like almost like closure too, right? Like, it really wrapped everything up. It put everything, obviously in that film, and really just brought perspective to all that. And and again, like, to be able to point to all those that came before us and show the world, like, what really happened. And I mean, I don't know, I'm just, it's, just thinking back on it, like, just, it's kind of surreal. That whole experience of getting that kind of feedback and giving those people that recognition. We thought we'd show it at the Kirby once. It sold out. We added 3 more shows, and the second show was sold out, and then we brought it back in September, and we brought it back last year. This year we're going to bring it back to the River Common. It's going to be shown right on the banks of the Susquehanna on June 21st to kick off Riverfest, and that's a free showing. So it's something we thought maybe we just bring back once a year, not with all the pomp and everything that happened in 2022 for the 50th anniversary. That was a big deal, the 50th anniversary. But the movie's done. There's still people that were interested in seeing it. Some people want to see it again. Some people missed it the first 5 times. And so, we might very well bring it back every year. And this year it'll come to the river. And that's one of my favorite parts of the film is the sandbaggers. There's a nice segment on the gallant effort that was made by approximately 10,000 people to literally just try to raise the levee of the dike with their bare arms, just with muscle, and lift these heavy sandbags and literally try to raise the levee a couple of feet. And it was a very poignant part of the movie. And so to show it right there where that happened, I think that's going to really connect with the people. Yeah, that's really impactful. That really is.
Yeah.
Like, that's, it was one thing to be sitting in the Kirby, right? But then to show it down at the levee, like, and it's funny you said too, like one of the things that stood out, because that's also one of the parts I think that stood out to me about the film was the sandbaggers in that part. So like when I referenced the volunteers just a few minutes ago, and when I was referencing the volunteers, that's what I was picturing.
Sandbaggers.
I was literally picturing the sandbaggers, because some of the footage of that, it was like unbelievable.
Well, the timeline on it, I mean, the valley is being evacuated on the morning of the 23rd, and at the same time that most people are fleeing to higher ground, 10,000 people are marching right to the river because they're being called at the same time. It's kind of, there was two messages. There was one, hey, everybody get out of here. But
hey, we need help.
We need help.
We also need help.
We also need help.
Yeah, right. Yeah, leave, but also stay.
Yeah. But if you're able-bodied, come down and help us. And so, they came down there and they worked hard. And I mean, we got home videos that had never been seen before, some amazing photographs. And Tim did a beautiful job with that piece of the film. He really did. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, shout out to all the other people that worked on the film. Forgive me because I don't know all their names like you do, but
I gave him a shout out before. Tim Novotny, Bob Savakinis, and Tony Brooks. That was our film team.
Heck of a team.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
You guys did a hell of a job with it.
Thank you.
For real.
Thank you.
It was legit. Not that I didn't think it would be, right? But like, it's really cool to see something in your hometown, even though there's obviously it was devastation is what it was, but to be able to see people here in our hometown be able to put together a film like that, that's a cool thing you guys should be really proud of.
Thank you. Well, Tim and Bob had done a lot of films before, and they reached out to us about finishing the project. It was kind of in the wind for over a decade, and we wanted to do it for the 40th anniversary, and we didn't have the funds. And back in 2020 during the pandemic, actually, everybody had a little more time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I did.
Yep.
And that's when we revisited the project in the summer of 2020, giving us 2 years to get this done.
Got the wheels rolling.
First thing we did was raise the money, and we got it this time. And that was a blessing from the community. And then the creative part started coming with the writing and the acquiring of the material and the licensing of the material and the directing and setting up the interviews. But I'll tell you, Bill, when you were sitting in Wilkes-Barre Area High School or Holy Redeemer or Hanover or Valley West, and those closing credits start, and you hear 1,000 kids break into applause like a standing ovation, and you realize that they are cheering for their own family. They're cheering for their grandparents. They feel something that maybe they didn't feel before because of what they just experienced for the 90 minutes of their lives.
Right.
That made it all worth it.
Yeah, and speaking of history, you're one of the very few people that has history here in this building.
I do.
Right? So it was funny when you walked in, I was like, "Yeah, man, Alan, hey, you've never been here before," and you're like, "No, you're wrong. Yes, I have." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh shit, when was he here?" And I was almost embarrassed at first, but then you're like, back when it was a pizza place. I'm like, "Oh yeah, duh." 'Cause I distinctly remember when I bought this building. It was almost 2 years ago at this point, and you reached out to me. I don't know, it was just a text or a phone call. Yeah, and you told me, and you're like, "Hey, I used to go there as a kid. I grew up going there." And I think, did you say you came with your grandparent? Was it your grandfather?
No.
Who was it?
It was more. I was a little bit older. My friend Bill lived over on Price Street, right around the corner. His family, and we called it Larry's Pizza, and we would just, more like when we were 18, 19. We would just come over here and get a pizza and watch Yankee games in the summer. And that was our thing.
Yeah.
Want to get a Larry's and watch the game? Yeah. All right, let's get a Larry's and watch the game.
So what was the last?
It's like the Don Mattingly era of the Yankees.
Yeah. So when can you remember, like, when was the last time you were in this building?
Oh, probably right when he closed. I mean, then it became the pizza mill. And I still would come here, and then they moved down
down the road.
Yeah. But we got a lot of extra cheese Larry's Pizza here. Probably knocked 5 years off my life, eventually.
Yeah. So what's it been, like a good 30 years since you've been in here?
Oh yeah.
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 That's
definitely.
wild.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
But I didn't need directions, that's for sure.
Yeah, you knew exactly where to go.
No.
Except it probably doesn't smell as good as it used to in here.
No, actually it's fine. I mean,
I'm trying to keep the pizza scent going.
It really looks great in here.
Yeah.
You guys did an amazing job. It's got an ambiance to it.
Thank you.
You feel like you're coming in it feels like
Yeah, what does it feel like?
It feels like a big time podcast. I just feel like I mean, it's a different feeling. You're coming in here and you've got the lounge and, the pictures and the office and the decor. I mean, I'm so happy for you. I know I told you, I listened to your entire episode 200. I had a conference for work, and I had to go to Gettysburg. About a good 3.5 hour drive. So you kept me company for two hours on that drive listening to your podcast. And I've known you for a long time now, since Big Brothers Big Sisters, when I worked there and you chaired Bowl for Kids' Sake, 8 years ago or so. And, to see what you've done and to turn a dream into a successful business, and thankfully healthy after your recent scare, I'm just proud of you, Bill.
Thank you.
I mean,
I appreciate that
really,
a lot.
I mean, it's just chasing your dreams and giving it a shot and going out on a limb. It takes some courage. There's a lot of risk, and certainly for you there was. You talked about that on your episode, and so, and what you're doing for the community, giving these people a forum.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that we have in common.
We do. That's right.
When I wrote the music column for the newspaper, Music on the Menu, mostly it was a profile. Even though they called it a column, I rarely editorialized. It was more often than not me interviewing somebody, talking about their music, a profile basically. And then I wrote a column called Meet, and I wrote a column called Up Close and Personal for the Weekender and the Times Leader, and later the Electric City. And what you're doing, I realized as I look back on that time in my life, and it's very much what you're doing right now, is you're uplifting people. You're making them, you're giving them an opportunity to talk about their passion, and that makes them feel good. They, who doesn't love to talk about their passion? I just talked to you about the Agnes movie for 5 straight minutes.
Yeah, and we could probably continue talking about it for another hour,
or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of interests. That was one of them. And so, cheers to you for uplifting people.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's I think subconsciously, like, I was probably like building something. I think I've said it. I don't know if it was in my episode or others, but I was like, at first I was building it, and I don't think I realized really what I was building, right? But I was subconsciously building myself a new career, a new job. Like, and at first I don't think I didn't realize it, and then once I started making money, I was like, maybe this could like become a thing. I'm like, I don't know how, but one day at a time, right? And 5 years later, here we are. But it was kind of just one of those things where, you just want to just have cool people and just talk and have good conversations. And, I'll say podcasting in this area, at least say 5 years ago. I don't want to say it was brand new, because there was people that came before me. I don't want to try to, claim like I'm the first one that ever did it, or I'm still the only one, because I'm not, right? And I wasn't. But at the same time, it's still kind of new, and it's still kind of even almost new now, right? Because as we all know, not to shit on this area, because I love this area, but this area's a little bit behind, I'll say, the rest of the country, right? So podcasting is still kind of new-ish, right? It was definitely new several years ago, right? At least in this area, but it was just like you said, it was a really cool way just to talk to interesting people about interesting things. I know that kind of sounds cliche, but it's like, you know what? It's fun. It's fun, and it's also educational. And actually, one of the other words, I got a shout out to Jimmy T. Martin, actually, my guy who interviewed me. The word he used is edutainment. It's educational. Oh, yeah. That's the word he used, yeah. and I kind of took it and I'm rolling with it, right? It's educational and it's entertainment. It's edutainment, and that's and when he was a guest himself, episode 55, shortly before you actually. That was Jimmy's first time on the show, and he kind of talked about it after, and one of the first words he used was, "This is like edutainment. It's educational and it's entertainment." And he's like, "I love it," and I'm like, "Cool. I'm taking that word.
It's a good word."
Yeah. And here we are 5 years later.
As I've watched some of other podcasts, Joe Rogan or whoever it might be, one of the things I was taken back by them, and because most of my interviews that I've done in my career, for newspapers anyway, and even when they're on my radio show, I've got, I've got a guest on, and he's going to talk about his new record, and I want to play 9 songs, and the show's an hour, so each break needs to be 3 minutes, and then we'll move on. And you could cover a lot, and You know, you could play some tunes and get a good idea. But one of the things I really like about podcasts, particularly in this age of social media, is not so much social media, but texting and communication, is the conversation. These podcast conversations are intense sometimes. You know, I mean, they are like you and I are doing right now. And, you know, the phones are off, and we're not worried about the commercial break, and we're not worried about how much time is this break on a broadcast or so. And so it allows the conversations to breathe in a way more so than even a talk show on television or radio. It's sort of in a way, it's a groundbreaking way to have conversations in the media.
Yeah, because it's not rushed.
No.
You know, it's not rushed. It's not scripted. Not that other shows really are, right? But like, you know, it's like you said, it's just a open dialogue.
Well, if I was interviewing somebody for the newspaper and I was like interviewing, it could be the biggest rock star in the world. I could have been interviewing, but if I'm talking about their new tour and their new record, and I know I've got 25 inches of news space, and I want to get those things in, and I get a couple of good comments on them, I'm good. Mm-hmm. You know, okay, I'm gonna go write a good story. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Podcasts just breathe in a different way.
Yeah.
And I like that about them.
Yeah.
You do a great job with them.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I obviously really enjoy it myself, and yeah, and it's cool. I just one of the things I always say is like, I've done like over 200 interviews, episodes, whatever you want to call them, conversations, right? And I've learned so much. I've learned so much about me. I've learned so much about other people, and you know, back to the word edutainment. Like, I've learned so much in this process that's actually helped me then even build this business. Mm-hmm. Like, and all the people that have come on the show probably have all helped in some way, whether they know it or not. So shout out to everybody that's ever been on the show, right? Sometimes more than once. But it's really cool, like, to look back and to see all the experiences of all the people, all the different walks of life, all the different backgrounds. Like, I've said to somebody recently, I think I've interviewed probably someone from almost every walk of life, like literally, like everything, almost anything and everything you can imagine. I feel like there's probably almost nothing that, like, you know, or somebody, I'm sure, you know, there'll be a different unique story, you know, here or there, but like, there's just been so much diversity, which I like, because it's not like we're talking about the same thing week in, week out. Do some conversations and topics overlap? 100%.
Sure.
But like, it's not like I'm niche in tech,
right?
You know, or
right.
niche in, you know, golf, right? It's like, you know, it's kind of human. It's entrepreneurship and business, but it's also human interest. And, you know, I just love the intersection of all that, because it just makes for a great conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's the root of what makes podcasts unique. I did my radio show was off the air. I've been on for 20 years this year now, on Sunday nights with local music. But there was, 3 months in the beginning of COVID where I broadcast from Mohegan, Pennsylvania. That's where the River studio is. So that's where I do my show. And it was closed. And I wasn't a full-time employee. And so my show was not on for, was probably April, May, June, something like that of 2020, during the bad part of the
pandemic. The early on.
The real shutdown,
yeah.
Before the vaccine. And my instinct kicked in as a journalist. And I was like home, and I'm like, okay. And so I did a makeshift podcast where I would just record people on my telephone with, it's called Tape-A-Call. And I talked to all these people from the entertainment, the music scene from northeastern Pennsylvania. Will Beekman from the Arena, and Richard Briggs and Brett Alexander, people that worked in sound and companies, people that played, any way that the pandemic, people that owned clubs, and talked to them about how this is affecting you. And one of the differences, because it was a podcast, was every episode, because we were all going through something extraordinary, was before we get to, let's say I'm talking to Richard Briggs from Briggs Farm. Before we get to the festival and how this is going to affect you this year, how you doing? How are you? And that was different for me, even as an interviewer, because I didn't have time for that when
Yeah,
I was doing somebody first times leader.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I might say it every day. Hey, how you doing, man? Good.
Right, but then it's quick, right into it.
So let's get to it. Let's talk about this new record.
Yeah.
And sometimes their time was pressed, especially if it was somebody really famous.
Right.
Publicists.
Yeah, you don't get long.
You got 20 minutes.
on the dot.
Let's get it done. So that I like that, and so I did all these. I think I did 19. Aaron Fink was one of them from Breaking Ben. I wound up recording them all and putting them up on YouTube. And then I saw a thing in the newspaper that the Luzerne County Historical Society was looking for oral history of the pandemic. They were looking for, and I had 19 interviews in the can on how they had navigated through it. And so I donated them all to the Historical Society. So they're all there on CD and on MP3.
Nice.
So that was my little, step into the podcast world, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of these mediums that I fell in love with, right? And it's one of the things I never thought I would. And I think it's just because I'm genuinely curious in people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what kind of keeps me going. Like I just love having conversations with unique people with unique experiences, and especially in this area, I think there's a lot of people in this area that I want to say maybe get overlooked, and there's just a lot of uniqueness, as you know, and I know you know that, but like there is. I know everybody probably thinks that about their own hometown, but I don't know. Maybe there's a little bias, but I just think this area is just so much more unique than most parts of the world.
Well, maybe that's a segue, because that's what I do for a living now.
Yeah, that's right. yeah, which is different than when you were on last time.
Yeah, I was not working for the Visitors Bureau, and interestingly enough, so I guess it was in June of 2021, almost 3 years ago, very shortly after we did the podcast, a month later, I was hired to be the executive director of Visit Luzerne County. And one of the things that we're going to be launching hopefully this year is a monthly podcast. And so I might flip the table on you, Bill. You might be coming down.
Okay, hey.
You got to come down to the train station.
I'm cool with that. I love the train station, by the way. I mean, that building is just so unique. It's iconic.
It is. I mean, what an incredible story behind it. First of all, it's got two stories. It was a very busy train station for 104 years.
So crazy to think about.
I mean, people getting on those train platforms, going, New York to Philadelphia. I remember when we first moved in the winter of 2022, January of 2022. There were some mornings where I was there alone in the morning, and it was very quiet, and we were just getting settled into our new home, and I just started trying to feel the building a little bit, and it just occurred to me the one morning, like, how many tears were shed here of people going off to war? Like, what kind of hugs of joy when people were coming home, hugs of tears when people were going off. You start thinking about all those things. How many people were just left here to go on a fun trip and had the time of their life, and certainly when you talk about the second incarnation of the building, which was the Station Market Street Square nightclub, which was a very popular spot for about 25 years. You think of the musicians that played there, the good times. I mean, people at Rock and Roll Hall of Fame played there. My office, I have a picture of me because my friend used to work there. My best friend helped manage the club back when we were like 23 years old. And so we hung out there all the time. And Peter Criss from Kiss, who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, did a show there. And my friend, we were fans. So he's like, well, come on over. I'll introduce you to Peter. And so, of course, that's what I do. And we're hanging out all day, and we're looking around, and he's got his drums in this room that they still have Kiss spray painted on all the drum cases from when he was in Kiss. I have a picture of me from when I was like 23 years old standing next to these Peter Criss. That is now my office. Like that same room.
That's so crazy. That is so crazy.
I mean, I met two of my girlfriends in that room back in the 90s, early 2000s. And so, everybody has stories like that. People come in and they They'll tell us, I met my husband here, I met my wife here. They'll say the exact spot where
Talk
it
about the
was.
memories, man. Wow.
Oh, I saw David Crosby here. I saw Joan Jett here. I saw Todd Rundgren here, whoever it might have been. There were all these ticket stubs that they found in the floorboards when they were doing the remodel 3 years ago, the restoration of all these, great concerts that were there. I tell our staff, we're in the business of promoting attractions. That's what the Visitors Bureau does. And because we're now in a building that's on the National Register of Historic Places, we are an attraction. So people are, what could be a better place for a Visitors Bureau than a building that everybody kind of wants to check out it on its own? We've had train buffs come in. Guys, a couple carloads of guys came down once. I think they came from Binghamton. They just wanted to see the train station because they were into trains.
Yeah.
So you got that component. You got the train buffs. You got the people that have nostalgia from the club. You have some older folks that actually remember taking trains out of there because they were still, as early as the early 60s, you could still take trains out of there. So if you were a little kid growing up, you'd be 75 now, you could have taken a train out of there. And so
it's crazy. It's so crazy.
It's got an amazing history. We absolutely love it there. Every day walking in there, it's just a joy.
Yeah. So what's new at the Visitors Bureau?
Well, it's just been my experience there has been wonderful. My predecessor, Ted Wample, who I know you know Ted, through family connections, he retired. And I knew I didn't know, I knew what the Visitors Bureau did because I've been on the committee for Rocking the River, the concert series that the county launched in 2019. I got involved with that. And I got actually, the funny part is, I hosted a concert series at the Susquehanna about almost 15 years ago. It was called Jam in the Park, and it was put together by the chamber. I think it was still called the Wilkes-Barre Chamber of Commerce at the time, before it was the Wyoming Valley Chamber. And they asked me to MC it, because of Music on the Menu and the radio show. They just reached out, would you be our host and come down and MC the show? So that was at the smaller amphitheater down on the Wilkes College side of River Common in Wilkes-Barre. If you're familiar, there's a nice little amphitheater there, believe it or not, underused. So I hosted those there that summer, and it was fantastic. Loved it. And, I think that was funded with a grant. I know it was. And so after the grant money was gone, the concert series went away. So I always thought it would be great to do something there again with music. And then I wound up working for the radio station, The River. And I remember thinking, man, we should do something down there. We should do something down at the river. We're the river. There's a concert venue there. And then the county started Rocking the River. And I went to the first one, and I was blown away by what a fantastic setup it was. And I reached out to the committee. I reached out to Carrie from the Times Leader, who I knew was on the committee, and maybe Dave Pedry, who I really didn't know very well at all, who was the county manager at the time. And I basically said, you guys need a radio sponsor? Because I think the river would be, first of all, they had all classic rock tribute bands. We're a classic rock radio station, and we're called The River.
Perfect. What more could align?
Right? Talk about serendipity.
Yeah, right.
And so, or synchronicity. And so they said, yeah, sure. And so I got involved with helping get The River involved as a radio sponsor and helping promote the shows. And then a year or so later, Ted retired, maybe 2 years later. And I was interested in the position, and here I am. And it's been great.
That's cool.
It was really, Bill, the only time that I ever went for an interview for a job. It was at the courthouse, where I felt that everything that I had done in my whole career had lined up perfectly for this position. Because when I was a features writer at the Times Leader, I wrote feature stories for 15 years about all the fun things to see and do in northeastern Pennsylvania. So one of our major attractions is obviously the arena. Well, I was walking around the arena with a hard hat on, doing an article about it when they were building it. I was out at Ricketts Glen, walking the trails. I I was doing things about the Dennison house, articles about our history. And so our attractions were something that not only did I appreciate, but I knew a lot about, just because I had written articles about them. I probably knew whatever the attraction was in town, I probably knew the person who was the general manager or the executive director, and I probably interviewed them and talk about what they do there. Then I went over to Catholic Social Services, where I met you when I was at Big Brothers Big Sisters, and eventually became the director of marketing and communications. And so public relations, marketing, we're a destination marketing organization. So, you're checking that box and you're checking this box. Rocking the River, big part of the responsibility of the Visitors Bureau. Well, I had organized the Concert for a Cause for 12 years. I had 37 bands playing on one night, in one venue with 4 sound systems and 4 stages. And I did all the PR for that. And so, I went into that interview knowing I could do this job. If I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, you seem pretty qualified.
That one I did.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go on an interview like, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You're kind of like, yeah, well, I kind of did that.
I can kind of figure it out.
This one, I did feel like
you checked all the boxes.
I went into that interview like, I really want this job, and I'm going to go in there and put my best. You talked about. I remember they asked me in my interview about working with advisory boards, because we have one. I work with 3 advisory boards at Catholic Social Services. The Soup Kitchen, the Big Brothers Board. So I knew how to work with a board and knew how important they could be, how valuable they could be. I also knew there's some people that just like to be on boards.
Yeah.
You might not see them too much.
Right.
But that's okay. It's harmless. At least they're still going out talking about you. So there's no such thing as really a bad board.
Yeah.
It's all good.
On the Stacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All On the Stacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights.
A lot of times when people are in car accidents, kind of forget what we should do. First and foremost, call 911. Then, get out of your car before moving it and take pictures. It's so important to capture what the cars look like immediately following the accident. Finally, call your insurance carrier and make a claim.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law offices online at anzalonelaw.com. This episode is brought to you by Loop Internet. Are you tired of buffering, lagging, and slow internet speeds? Look no further. Introducing Loop Internet, Northeastern Pennsylvania's fastest and most reliable internet service provider. With Loop Internet, you can stream, game, and work from home seamlessly. Say goodbye to interruptions and hello to lightning-fast connections. Loop Internet offers both residential and business fiber. Fast-track the future with their 10-gigabyte fiber and join the Loop Internet family today. Visit Loop Internet online at loopinternet.com or call 1-888-808-5667. Again, that's 1-888-808-5667. Or visit them online at loopinternet.com. Loop Internet, where speed meets reliability. This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn Board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn Board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On the Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. And now we're back on the Stacks.
It's just been great, and to take what we have here in the county and help promote it outside of the county and also within the county. Rockin' the River is certainly something that's done for the people of the community. Mm-hmm. But then to take a lot of our revenue and try to get folks to come here is a lot of fun. We've done the pizza trail, which has been very successful, the ice cream trail, which has been successful. We did the beer trail with all the craft breweries trail, brought all those together. Our marketing team has done a terrific job with all those projects. The visitor's guide, which we do 100,000 copies of every year, they're distributed all throughout the Northeast. I'm talking New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, all throughout the Northeast at all the guest centers, all the rest stops, all the visitor centers, all the hotel lobbies. There's so much here to see and do, whether it be professional sports with the Rail Riders and the Yankees, whether it be the concerts. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, on the same day, we had, this April 27th, we had a polka event at Genetti's with some of the greatest polka artists in the country. We had the Cherry Blossom Festival. We had an autism awareness event on Public Square where there were local bands and vendors and music. And then we had Bonnie Raitt, who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, at the Kirby, sold out. And we had Journey at the Arena, who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, sold out. And so this was all happening on one Saturday night.
It's crazy.
In Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah. Yeah, for all the people that say there's nothing to do around here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, open your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, take your pick.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad asked me to go to the Bonnie Raitt concert with him because he had an extra ticket. And I said, Dad, I already have tickets to the Journey concert. So he had to find a buddy to go with him. This is just in my own family. My dad was going to one. I was going to the other. And so, and then, of course, our outdoors. I mean, I've told this story before, but I go out to Ricketts Glen, and I always like to take note of the license plates because I like to see where people are coming from. I was out there one day, Bill. It was a beautiful day in November. It was a warm November day. And I'm telling you, 70 to 75% of the plates in that parking lot were from out of state. And they're coming to Luzerne County to walk our beautiful trails and see our waterfalls. And, it's just kind of one of those things where you wonder if what's right under your nose you haven't taken advantage of as a resident. I had a buddy
100%.
once. I had a friend once. Well, he's still my friend. but I met him at a rock concert. It was a Kiss concert in Allentown. I was 17 years old. And this guy, I see him fiddling with his coat. He's in there and he's checking something in his poke. I'm like, hey, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm taping the show. I'm like, you're taping the show? He's like, yeah. I'm like, gotta get a copy. He's like, yeah, right. So he gives me his phone number. He lived in New York. And I guess a couple days after the concert, I called him in New York, and I said, hey, I'm the guy that met you at the show. And he goes, yeah. He goes, send me a check for $10 and a blank tape, and I'll mail it to you. I trust the guy. What's the worst that could happen? I lose $10. And although $10 in 1984 was a lot of money.
Maybe a little more, yeah.
But anyway, long story short, we became good buddies. Eventually, there was no money exchanging. It was just, hey, I got a good show. Send me a blank, or he just mailed to me. We started trading bootlegs. And I remember the one day I was talking to him, and he had never been to the Empire State Building. He had never been to, at that time, the Twin Towers, which was obviously still there. He had never been to the Statue of Liberty. He had never been to the United Nations. He had never been to the Circle Line. I had done all that stuff. By the time I was 15 years old, I had done all those things. And here's a native New Yorker who never did. And I was kind of busting on him about that. And like, I can't believe you never. He goes, I can't believe you don't ski, Right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, no, I don't,
Yeah.
And so there is something to be said for that sometimes the things that are right under your nose are the things that maybe you don't understand, that there's people coming from maybe hundreds of miles away to participate.
It is a weird phenomenon.
And the trails are certainly one of those.
Yeah. Because it's also like one of those things where people complain. And it's like, oh, this area sucks. Oh, there's crime. There's this, there's that. It's like, okay, well, just go somewhere else, live there for a little while, and report back, because you're going to see the same thing. Right?
Yeah. I mean, crime. We live in a different world than we did 30 years ago. And there's crime in the cities, but I tell people all the time. We use downtown Wilkes-Barre as an example. Oh, I don't want to go down to the square. When was the last time you actually heard of something happening on the square?
Right.
They don't have an answer.
Right. Exactly.
There's, go down to Rodano's and Franklin's and see all those people sitting outside having a couple of beers on a Saturday night, or Rodano's outside, sold out Kirby show, people walking over to Cafe Toscana or La Telteca, and everything's buzzing. The jazz festival that we just had, the Wilkes-Barre, the Cavalcade Jazz, people walking all over downtown Wilkes-Barre, multiple venues, checking out jazz acts. The whole night kicked off at the Kirby. I was there. Do you hear any problems about it?
Nope.
No. All you heard was people had a great time. Hope you do it again next year.
Yeah.
And so, perception is not always reality. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, just going back to, those things being like just right in our own backyard. I think, and we're all guilty of it. Like just taking for granted, what we have or what's around us. Myself included, same thing. Like, I don't ski, right? Like there's things, like in this area that it's just like, people from the, I have a lot of friends outside of the area. I built a great network over the last, 15 years of my life. But like, sometimes I hear from some of these people like, oh, have you ever been to the whatever up in Poconos? And I'm like, the what?
Right.
and they're telling me about it. And I'm just like, no, I've never been there. Like, wait, you live there? You've never been there? And I'm like, yeah, well, not that I can't, obviously it's only, 40 minutes away from here, but there, just to, like you said, to echo what you said, there's a lot of things right here in our own backyard that we don't take advantage of. And I think it's just one of those things, like when you're in the area, like it's a different thing. It's like, I can't explain it. It's a weird phenomenon where people just want to get out. They want to go somewhere else and experience something else. And not necessarily that they don't like this area, but I don't know. It's just a weird phenomenon, and it's not like a right or a wrong or a good or a bad thing. I mean, maybe a little bit bad.
I think it's common in a lot of communities. Like I said, my buddy from New York, same thing. You've never been to the Empire State Building? You're like, I've been up there 5 times.
This is my backyard. Like, no, yeah.
Yeah, it's this building people. My dad used to work in there. Why would I
yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
I mean, I'll tell you another thing I did, and this was before I worked at the Visitors Bureau. Maybe it was getting back to the first part of our conversations about the flood. When you grew up in this area in the 70s and 80s, your parents would tell you don't go by the river. Rivers don't go by. No, they're afraid you're going to fall in and drown. But that sort of perception, my friends and I, when we were in high school, I don't know what happened. If we just went down to Nesbitt Park one day and we were like, it's damn pretty down here.
Yeah, what's so bad about it?
I like it here. I'm gonna sit by the river, and so we came up with this expression: the river is good. We used to say, randomly once in high school, hey, you know what? The river is good. And so I've been thinking that now since I was a teenager, and I did Riverfest twice now, once with alone, and then a couple of years ago with my son. And I'll tell you, if you kayak down the Susquehanna. And if you're not a kayaker, I highly recommend doing it with Riverfest, because they do it in June and it's very organized. You're with a group, you're with professionals. They go out on the river the night before and they check the currents and they check the level. And if they think it's too rough, they won't even do it. And so you don't really have to worry. And you start off up in Falls and you come down, and I'm telling you, that first 40 minutes or so, you're looking at this scenery around you, and I mean, this is what I felt. I felt like this looks no different than it would have to a Native American in a canoe 300 years ago. This is extraordinary. I mean, I saw an American bald eagle sitting in a tree, and I'm kayaking down, and the mountains are right on top of you up there. And then you come into Pittston, and you'll see Bruise Brothers,
That's so crazy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that's where I used to,
Yeah, I used to go there. Yeah.
And then you come down, and then you could actually see a couple of trains sticking out of the water still from the mine disaster. And you come through into Wilkes-Barre, and you go past the courthouse, and our courthouse is one of the most beautiful courthouses in the nation. That's well known. And it's just an amazing experience. And you can do it with a group of people. You could do it with your family. You can get out there. It's 3-4 hours. They take a little break. There's actually 2. The Friday night River Fest is shorter. I think that starts in West Pittston, and that one only goes maybe 90 minutes or so, and then the other one is longer. It's closer to 4 hours. I just love it. And it's just another way to get out there and experience northeastern Pennsylvania in a different way, and it's right under your nose.
Yeah.
The river is good.
The river is good. There we go. If anyone takes anything away from this episode, it's the river is good. That's gonna be that'll be the title. Yeah. The river is good with Alan K. Stout. But kind of switching gears a little bit, kind of going back to like the music. You have your music on the menu, 30th anniversary. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that's just crazy. I mean,
that is crazy.
That's a number that's hard to get your head around, because it was always part of my life since I was in my mid-20s, much younger than you are now. I was writing music on the menu. And so to have it come up on 30 years this year, and it's kind of strange because I started writing the column in 94 and the radio show was in 2004. So it's the 30th of the whole entity as music on the menu, and then 20 for the radio show. So a lot of musicians that crossed paths with and got to talk to them about their music, and hopefully turn some people on to their music.
Yeah. How has music in the industry changed over time? I know that's probably there's no easy way or quick answer to that question, but you've been doing this for so long. You've experienced more than anyone I know in the music industry, and the people that you've met, the stories you've done, all this and all that. Like how have you seen it change?
Well, it's interesting because I really thought that we were heading in a wonderful direction with music in the mid 90s, because what was happening then, and this is 30 years ago now, right when I was starting to get into it, was independently recorded albums were really starting to gain some steam. It used to be, it seemed anyway, that if you wanted to make a really great sounding album, you needed a record deal. You needed a studio that the label was going to pay. And what was happening in the 90s, and we saw it here with the Badleys, with the River Songs album particularly, was you can make a great record without a label. And you might even get some airplay on that record without a label. And so the independent music scene was almost becoming the minor leagues, because you could build your fan base, sell your records, get some press, get some airplay, and that got the attention of the major label. You actually had a tangible thing, because this all happened in the SoundScan era. SoundScan changed things too in the late 80s, early 90s, where the charts became totally legit. There used to be all kinds of shady stuff going on with the charts and, reporting this and that. SoundScan really made them. I remember the first time that I think SoundScan caught everybody's attention was, I guess, around 89, 90, and it was Garth Brooks. This country guy that most people never heard of, has the #1 album in the country. Who's this guy? How's he
Who the hell's Garth Brooks?
How's he number one? Who the hell's Garth
Yeah.
Brooks? Well, he's the guy that sold the most records in the country last week. That's who he is, and everybody and all the country fans love him.
Yeah.
Boom. How'd that happen? SoundScan. SoundScan was great, I thought, for the record industry. And then, because if you had an independent record and it was in the record store, it was also going on SoundScan. So Badleys, for example, launched out of here. They sell 12,000 copies of River Songs in Harrisburg and Wilkes-Barre, around in all the towns in between. And they start getting on the radio, and all of a sudden labels are coming out to see them. They got a couple of record deals, and you could build that. You had something tangible to showcase, and I thought that was a great thing. And there were so many bands that got signed that way. I remember the interview like Deep Blue Something. They had a hit, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and they were out of Dallas, Texas, and their story was exactly the same as the Badleys. Oh, we made a record, we sold a lot. We started packing them in the clubs. We got on the radio. Label called. Hey, came check you out, sign you. That is kind of gone. it's easier to reach people in a way now with streaming and, Spotify and, YouTube and CD Baby and iTunes and all the platforms. But it's so spread out that I almost feel it's harder to get the attention. Maybe because there's so many ways that people, how do you make a splash in the ocean? How do you make a splash that catches someone's attention in,
there's so much going on.
Yeah. And I think back then it might be easier to get a little microcosm of, hey, we're going to blow up in our town and then try to take it out and expand and see if we get some of the attention. And certainly the independent thing, I thought was hitting in the right direction. Now people are still recording independently and they're still making great records on their own. And sometimes they don't even need a studio now. They can do it on their computer at their house.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And they make some really good sounding music. And that's the upside, is the creativity and the outlet for creativity is better than it's ever been. And for my radio show, I mean, it's not unusual for us to debut. I remember one week, a couple months ago, we debuted 12 songs on one Sunday night that I had just received 10 days or so since I recorded the previous show.
Yeah.
And they were all good. We'll play them all. And, I get to come on the air and say, hey, we got a great first show. We're going to debut 12 new ones for a night. That is totally something that probably would not have happened 25 years ago. So there's good and bad. There's more creativity, but I really think it's harder for a rock band to get the attention of a label and have them develop them and maybe even let them fail on the first record and let them make another one. That there's a lot of stories of bands from the classic rock era that didn't really hit for maybe 2 or 3 records in, but they had somebody at the label that was behind them that said, no, I believe in you. We're going to do it again. And that's really rare now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another thing too, Bill, about music. I've said this once before, and I never really heard anybody else make this analogy before, but when it comes to talent and being discovered, I kind of wish that there was a way for music to be like sports. Think about this. If you're some kid and you're living on the back road of Alabama in some small town, and you're pitching for some small high school team, but you're 16 years old and you're throwing the ball 100 miles an hour and you've got a curveball that would make anybody look stupid, someone's going to find you. There's a scout down there and he's going to say, the coach is going to call and go, you got to come see this kid. And the word's going to get out. And you hear this in sports all the time. We got all these great Latin American players in the major leagues right now that came from God knows where. How'd they find these guys, But they're here. And if any sport, if it's football, basketball, if you look at all these kids that come in the NBA, from poverty, and the NFL too, but they've got this talent and it's being discovered by scouts, in baseball more scouts, college sports more, from the school itself, the high school teams. And it's really hard. It's very hard in sports for a great talent to get missed. It just, they're going to find you. And you like I said, you could be living in the back road of Alabama and some guy's going to drive up in his Cadillac and he's going to sit down with your mom and dad in the kitchen table and go, I want you to sign with the Baltimore Orioles and we're going to put you in our single A team. And if you excel, you will have the opportunity within 3 or 4 years to be a Major League Baseball player. And they're going to offer you some money right there, more money than you've ever seen in your life, to sign and come and be a part of the organization because you can throw the ball better than anybody within 50 miles of where you live. That happens all the time still. Music. Some guy's the A&R guy from a label. He gets the job. His job is it's taste. I don't like him. You hear these stories of bands that were passed over and got found later by a different label and stuff, but how many of the greatest songs that we've never heard are on shows like mine on Sunday nights on little programs around the country? that just didn't have that opportunity because, they don't have, it's not as tangible as the curveball, as the fastball. There could be great. And so what it's done for me in a way is it's soured me. I can't really watch a show like the Grammys and enjoy it. And it's nothing to do with what's happening in music today. I've been this way for like 30 years. I mean, like I'll sit and watch the Grammys and the song that wins Song of the Year. I played 5 songs better than that on Sunday night on my show from the guy that's playing at the local tavern. Really, And so it's a brutal business. When you ask me how it's changed, it's changed for the better. In the creativity and the outlet is there, and you could throw it up on YouTube and on your social media, and maybe once in a while you'll get somebody that goes viral and it catches on. But the idea of a band trying to get a record deal and have that label send them out on the road and tour and maybe open up for a big band and then 2 years later be headlining themselves, I think that's harder than ever.
You think those days are over?
Yeah. So that's where we're at. And that's unfortunate. I know that, some people say rock is dead, and it's not dead, but there's this band, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's some great rock bands that not only locally that, I've discovered that I really love, but that's hard for them to break through. It's just hard for them to break through. And radio has shifted too. I mean, a lot of times with rock and roll music particularly, the charts, the top 40 probably had 15 rock bands, in the chart. There's always pop music and rock music, and there's a differentiation, but you don't hear of too many rock bands. I think it's just Dave Grohl said the one day, he says, people keep saying I'm the last champion of rock. I'm carrying the torch for good. I'm 55 years old. Like,
Yeah.
It can't be me.
Yeah.
We need some.
Yeah, need somebody else.
Yeah. I'm happy to do my part, but it's kind of true.
Yeah. It's wild.
Who's the young Dave Grohl? I don't know.
Yeah. Hard to say. Mm-hmm. Really hard to say. It's changed a lot. Like, and part of me says, like, contrary to what you said, like, part of me thinks like, oh, okay, with social media and all this, it'd be easier, right? But at the same time, there's so much out there that it's like you said, like, how do you get seen? Because you just kind of get lost in the shuffle, you know?
I mean, I just had an artist reach out to me the other day, and I was talking to he actually has some management, and he said, I have a new album coming out, and I'd like to come on the show. And I said, well, what are you going to do? Are you gonna drop the whole record at once, or are you going to do a song this month and a song next month? And he goes, no, we're going to do a song. I go, that's the way you got to do it these days, because you spend 6 months making your record, and you record these 10 great songs, and you put all of your promotion into, hey, today I'm going to have my album release day. And you're counting on people basically on the internet to take their time to listen to your whole record. And that's a lot these days.
It's kind of a lot to ask.
In the old days, I wasn't. It was like, oh, we're going to go buy the new record. I'm going to go take it home and listen to it. It was a thing.
Yeah, I used to do it myself.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, they used to have midnight sales at the Gallery of Sound, where 600 people would be lined up to buy the new Breaking Benjamin record or Pearl Jam record, and that's gone. And so, I, as an older guy that grew up with buying records the day they came out and being at midnight sales, I told the guy, no, you're better off doing it that way. Put out a song now, and then put out another one next month, and put out another one. And then after maybe 6 months, then you release it all as one, and you say, here's the whole album. And but you'll keep your name out there for 6 months,
extended period of time,
instead of 6 days.
Yeah, and potentially it being a flop, and then it's like, oh, hey, nobody wanted to give you the new artist, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to give you the time of listening to your 12-track album. But like you said, if you do a single, spread that over a few months, then put together an album, it's like, hey, we're warming people up to you. And it's like, all right, hey, now then maybe somebody will give you the time of day. Like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna listen to this guy's album.
Yeah.
You know,
And old school people, well, I want to present the whole record. I want the artwork at the body, the sequencing. You could do that, but do that at the back end.
Yeah.
Do that at the back end.
Yeah.
You know, still do that. But for these days, you know, especially for an unknown artist, you know, if you have an established audience, obviously, like, you know, Taylor Swift drops a whole record.
of course, people are listening.
People are taking off the next day from work.
Right. Yeah. Like my wife. My wife's she's a big Swiftie.
Right.
Big Swiftie.
Yeah. Or a Heritage, you know, or a Springsteen or somebody. I want to listen to the whole record, the whole U2 record. I'll just, you know, I'll go buy it too. I'll get the CD for there's probably about 5 that because I've got this wall of sound, which I call in my basement, which is a CD rack the size of this wall behind us. I need to put the new Bruce and the new U2 with the other 30 records that I have.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
You know, and you could always upload it to your phone too.
Sure.
You just rip it through iTunes and upload it, so you have it both. But there aren't that many, even myself, that I feel I have to do that with anymore. Most of the time, I'm just happy grabbing this download.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get there.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things when you were talking about going back to, like you were saying about the sports and making the analogy with sports and music and being found and all that, like, and you said about all these kids, right? And just the word kid just kind of, you know, just sparked next point of conversation. You know, one of the things obviously we both have in common, you know, is that we're both dads, and I'm a new dad again for the second time with our daughter. She's about 3 months old. And, you know, for you, I know one of the things that's very important to you, as is me, is being a father. So I want to just kind of touch on that a little bit because, like I said, like I know how much it means to me to be a father, you know, to my kids, and they're everything, right? And I know it's the same for you. So I want to at least just give you a minute to kind of talk about that for a little bit.
It is everything. My daughter, Marianne, she's my first. She's 17. She's the 4th generation Marianne. I mean, a lot of families, they name, you know, the men have this, you know, juniors, the thirds, and so forth. My mother was Marianne, my grandmother was Marianne, and my great grandmother was Marianne.
Wow.
And so it's you know, it's not a common name. When we named her in 2007, it wasn't even a common name, but it's a beautiful name. And you know, she's always my baby girl. I mean, you know, she's driving now, and so
crazy.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You know, I gave her the keys the other night, and we just went for a little drive, and I'm starting to get a little more relaxed in the car with her. You know, I was nervous for a while. We actually sent her to the classes, you know, because I needed some help. I was just I was too nervous. I really was. Nothing to do with her either. She was fine. It was me. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I'm sure every parent knows this. You know, when their kids start to drive, zipping down to the Dairy Queen, you're not, you know, eventually, but, you know, I don't know when I'm going to be ready to let her go on 81 or something like that. It's just scary.
Yeah.
It just is, you know, so, but I mean, man, what a blessing, to see them grow. And my son, AJ, Alan Joseph, we call him AJ. He's, you know, he's an old soul. You know, I tell him sometimes, I've known you 1,000 years. I go, you may have been my dad or something in a different life, because we've just always been around each other in some way. It's an easy hang. You know, just, you know, you know, if you're a friend of mine on social media, most of my social media is, you know, talking about stuff that promotes what I'm doing with the radio show or my job or my kids. You know, it's 90%. Sometimes some baseball and some football, but kids,
definitely a lot of the kids. That's one thing. One thing that stands out in my mind, I feel like, about your social media, like, you know, it's seeing you know, take AJ to a concert, or, you know, those things just kind of, I can just kind of remember.
Yeah. Well, I took my daughter to see the Last Kiss concert at Madison Square Garden, and I took my son to see them earlier in the tour a couple times. Mm-hmm. My son and I are big. We love baseball, and I can tell you that one thing I guess I'm grateful for is that there are certain times in my life when I'm doing something when I am aware in the moment that this is special and that this is something that whenever my time is up, however many years down the road that might be, if I ever have an opportunity to sit and look back on things, that will be a highlight. And you know what it is? It's being on a ball field on a summer night with my son, and it's just me and him, and I'm pitching him a bucket of baseballs. And, I'm just out there throwing to him, and he's banging balls all over the field, and we have to go pick them all up and then put them back in the bucket and then do it again. And I just love it. I just love it. And my daughter, sometimes, even though she's a teenager, it was a couple of weeks ago, I'm down in the living room. It may have been a Friday night, and I'm just watching TV, and she comes down, and she just sits and starts talking to me for like an hour, and like, you know how teenagers are like that.
Yeah, they don't want to talk to their parents.
Yeah, I was up in my room for years.
Yeah. Came down maybe once to eat, if that.
Yeah, and so, the Santa years are behind us now, and all the little plays at school and all, but there's still a lot of joy in fatherhood. So I know you're at the beginning end of it still, and just hang on to those. I mean, man, I'll tell you, I'm a big Christmas guy, and I love Santa Claus. Got tons of Santa Clauses around the house, knickknacks and decorations and big sled, and I always made a big deal about Santa Claus to my kids. And so a couple of years ago, it was Christmas Eve, and I never had the talk with the kids. I just couldn't do it. I just knew that they kind of knew. So why do we have to have this conversation? And they knew how much I love Santa Claus. And so it was bedtime. And my son goes into the kitchen. Now I'm talking, he was probably, just 2 years ago, probably 12. And he goes into the kitchen and gets cookies and milk and puts them out on the table where we always did when he was little. And he didn't say anything, and I hear him in there, and he's doing it, and he just goes up to bed, and he's like, Dad, Merry Christmas, I'll see you tomorrow. And I was sitting there, and I go, he did that for me. He did that for me. He didn't want us to not have that. And that's the kind of stuff you just don't forget,
Yeah, that's cool. That is really cool.
Yeah. It was a little gesture, but it said a lot to me. Like all the things that I tried to make fun in this house when you were little, younger, I should say, that has not gone without, it connected in some way. And even the other day on Mother's Day, I'm divorced. I don't know if I even talked about that last time I was on, but I always made sure that he got his mother flowers on Easter and Mother's Day when he was 5, 6, 7 years old. Give these to your mom, give these to your mom, because I knew when he was older I wanted him to do that, after I'm gone. Well, he's 15 now, and on Mother's Day the other day he goes, Mom, will you take me to get flowers for Mom? I'm like, sure. He goes, I want to pay for my own money. I'm like, sure. And so done, so he's good now for the rest of his life.
You raised him well.
The rest of his life, I know he'll get his mom flowers for Easter and for Mother's Day, because when he was 5, 6 years old, I would just give them to him and say, make sure you get his mom. And so that's the little things about parenthood as they start to get into their teens, which you'll enjoy when you get there. Right now, you'll just love the little kid stuff. Yeah. And baby stuff.
Embracing the chaos.
Yeah, embrace the chaos. But there is joy in seeing some of the things that you try to teach them resonate. And that, okay, I did okay with that one.
Kind of speaking along that, maybe we'll end with this. What's your best dad advice?
Well, I'm still learning, so I don't want to sit here like, I raised two, 40-year-old kids who are off, with successful careers. So I have to adjust too periodically. And I think one of the things that my parents did for me when I was a teenager, as I look at it now, is they let me be me. And so, I mean, I grew my hair out in the last year or two of college, and I wore a jean jacket with band patches all over it, and I wear a different band concert t-shirt to school every day. And I was not a preppy kid that looked like he was probably going to do anything other than maybe roadie for some band, because I couldn't fully play an instrument either. And so, and that's, but if that's what I wanted to do, if that's what I wound up doing, if that was my passion, hey, I think my parents would have been okay. Like, you got to let them, especially when they get to be teenagers, find their own way. And it's hard because you want to guide them on everything. Well, don't do that. I made that mistake. But they will trip. They will stumble. Just be there for them. Help them get back up, and set them on the right course. Let them make those mistakes, but really let them be themselves. They'll, if you do your job, the things that are the most important to you, that you led by example, that will be there. That will be a part of them. I just told you 2 stories about my son with the cookies and with the flowers. That's going to be there. But also let them find their own way. What a better example than you, Bill? Here you are. Like, I listen to.
Yeah, and I'm 35 years old,
but
right?
Listen to Bill's podcast that he did, episode 200, and how he had everything lined up for him. Everything was set for you to go in a direction from when you were a little boy, and you went this direction, and you have had the support of your family. Maybe they were like, I really wish Bill would have taken over the business, but it sounds like you're good, right? With everybody. Mm-hmm. And here you are. And so that's important.
Yeah.
So
I think that is. I think just, even though, like you said, like you're still learning, which I appreciate that mindset, by the way. I really, really appreciate that, even though you have, your kids are 17, 12,
17 and 15,
17, 15. Yeah. But you still have the mindset of, hey, like I'm still learning, and I'm still adjusting, and I'm still, maybe even in a couple of years from now, you're going to adjust again. And that's great. I think that's a real important mindset to have, not just as a parent, but just in anything in life.
In life. Yeah. I mean, I could still figure out ways to make the radio show better after 30 years. I could, the Visitors Bureau job is ongoing. I always tell, when we hire somebody new, I say, and this was the advice that Ted gave me when I took the job. He said, let the job come to you. If you try to figure out everything that your responsibilities are here in a couple of days, you're going to get overwhelmed. Let it come to you. Okay, I've mastered that. Okay, that one I still need to work on. And I think that's how we should treat life.
I agree.
It doesn't really change no matter how old you are.
Yeah.
It can still improve.
The always learning. And then the other thing is, one of the other things I appreciate is just that you said is just let them be them, and let them find their own way, of course, guide them, right? Be there for them, like you said.
Yeah, sure.
But always just let them be curious, let them do things that they want to do, and encourage them, because nowadays, I feel like nowadays more so than ever, whether it's young kids or teenagers or even people in their 20s or even 30s, like I'm 35, and I'm thinking back a couple years ago, and if I had told somebody that I was going to do this in a few years, which I'm talking about like right now in the present, if I had told somebody this a few years ago, guess what they did? They laughed at me.
Really?
Some people laughed at me. And, maybe some people are still laughing, but that's okay. It doesn't matter, and
you have the last laugh.
Exactly, yeah. But it's one of those things that, like, hey, like, even in my early 30s, did I have the support of everybody? No. Do I have the support of, some people that mattered? 100%. But I think it's important to support anyone. I don't care if you're, 5 years old, 15, 25, 35, I'll even say 45 or older. Listen, if you want to start something new, you want to do something different, go do it. And support the people around you, whether it's your friends or your family, whatever it is. Just let the curiosity go and see. Because, again, like just like you said, I'm the perfect example. I'll say like I had like all the cards were laid out for me, right? I checked all the boxes. I did this, I did that, and all of a sudden, changed my mind.
Yeah.
You know what? And that's okay. And I think a lot of people nowadays think that that's not okay. And it's like people don't encourage. Not that I'm telling anyone just to go uproot your life. Don't just quit your job on a whim. I'm definitely not saying that. But like I did this for 5 years before I decided like, okay, now I could really, really do it. And it's one of those things I I just want to echo kind of a little bit what you said, but let people follow their passions and just let people encourage people to do what they want to do.
Let them find their own way, and the dots will connect themselves, later in life. You asked me about music on the menu before. 30 years ago, I'm sitting at my desk in the newsroom, and the entertainment editor basically says, "You got a minute?" I say, "Sure." He used to smoke. He used to like to smoke on his break. So he goes, "Come on." And we're standing in front of the Times leader, and he's dragging on his cigarette. His name's Paul Gallagher. He was the entertainment editor, great guy. And he said, I'd been writing music for 18 months, just stories and some. And he said, "I think of maybe having you do a weekly column." Because you think you write something every single Friday for the entertainment section? I'm like, "I think I could do that, sure." And he's like, "All right." And he named it. It was his music on the menu and everything. But when you think about it, that was a dot that happened 30 years ago that I could connect to so many things that came afterwards, including not going to school to be a journalist. I went to school to be a school teacher. I pivoted at age 24. Yeah, I think it was 24 where I went into journalism. And, I didn't have any pushback from family at that point. I didn't have anybody like saying, "What are you doing?
You're crazy."
I really want to write about music for a living. That's really what I want to do. Well, that's a long shot. Well, it was a long shot. I remember my mom said to me, "It's a long shot." But, then a couple years later, I'm introducing her to Sting, so.
Yeah. It's not so much a long shot.
And so you got to let people, I wasn't discouraged. It's okay to maybe say, "Hey, just so you know."
Yeah, challenge them.
But also let people go. It doesn't matter, even if your kids are out of school and they're still, out of college and they're still trying to maybe figure it out in their 20s.
Oh yeah, they still are.
They still are.
Listen, and again, I'm the perfect example. I thought I had it all figured out, right? I thought I did, and I'm in my 30s.
Sure.
And I want that to be a lesson for anyone that's listening or watching. That like, it's okay if you're 35 and you still don't have it figured out. Like, that's okay. Just keep going.
Keep going.
You'll figure it out.
Keep
Just like
going.
you said, that the dots. Just keep putting together the dots. They will align.
Life itself will keep you in check. You got to eat and you got to have a roof over your head. So you're going to do something to get to take care of yourself. It's a tough world out there to survive in, especially these days. So you're going to be doing that anyway. So while you're doing that, figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Well, Alan, I appreciate you coming on today. It's been it's been too long, by the way.
Oh well, we had a lot to catch up on.
We do, and we can't let so much time go by again before having another one of these catch ups here.
I'd love to. I enjoy it. Like I said, it's a different medium. It's still relatively new in the grand scheme of things with media, but I think a podcast is a great way to have a conversation, push the phone off, turn it away, not worry about so many things that you're confined with other forms of interviews that I've done for years.
Yeah. How can people connect with you online?
If you're interested in the radio show, I have a Facebook page, Music on the Menu with Alan K. Stout. So if you're a local band and you want to get on the show, just shoot me a message on there. And of course, with the Visitors Bureau, Visit Luzerne County. .com. There's a staff section there, and my email and my contact is right there as well. Or just stop in the train station.
There you go. Go check it out. Seriously, it's an incredible. I wish I owned the building.
Yeah,
I do.
So do I.
I do. I love the building. I love it. I love that old, just the everything about it. It's just like I don't know.
What's amazing too is the nightclub. A lot of the extensions were built in 1980 when they turned into a nightclub, but when they did the renovations, the stuff that survived was from 1868.
So crazy.
So they say they don't build it like they used to.
Yeah. Sure shit don't. Yeah. Oh my God. That's crazy. All right. Well, if you haven't been there, you got to go. I mean, it's seriously, it's an experience. I love the building. Who knows? Maybe one day I don't even know who owns it. Does the county even own it?
George Albert owns it.
Oh, okay.
Hey, you got a beautiful new place here, Bill. So
I'm looking for another one.
Well, there's some room upstairs.
Okay.
I know there is.
Yeah.
Because there was a tenant that outgrew it. So
Yeah.
there's some space up there.
Yeah. It was Loop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So loops out,
Yep.
and there's plenty of room upstairs.
Nice.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have podcasts on that on the other side of the river.
There you go.
I gotta come back to Wilkes-Barre.
Don't worry
I'll
about
make-
crossing the river. The river is good.
That's right. The river is good. All right, that's it. Alan K. Stout on the Stacks. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast or search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.